The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. We're open line through till 1 today after yesterday's delve into tourism and Destination First with Ranald Corwell, Deborah Heather and Sarah Maltby, MHK. I wonder what you thought. Lots of feedback on that. Anything else on your mind? Text, email, call and WhatsApp. First of all, just a quick word also about that. People have been noticing that there are traffic wardens, or as we used to call them, parking controllers, traffic wardens out on Sunday. And so we asked the government if this is true, if the government are putting traffic wardens out on Sundays now, and they said to us it's not uncommon. And it's required from time to time to manage parking that can often cause issues for others. Disc zones are usually Monday to Saturday, but there are many areas with restrictions that apply all times. So I just wonder whether you've seen any traffic warden activity where you are, and if they're making a difference. Of course, we do have quite a bit of an issue around Douglas because lots of people park very close to corners, and often very important corners, which can be it can cause drivers to be unsighted. Really, you can't see what's going around the corner, particularly if it's a bus route. But anyway, if you notice this, or if you'd like more, to be quite honest, and let's face it, if they're giving out tickets, there'll be revenue generation in here. Then text, email, call and WhatsApp. Parking on Sundays, something you want to talk about? Anything else? Do get in touch. We're open line today. David's first with us today. Hi, David.
Hi, Randy. And the subject will be, is no home. And I just listened to the reports from Manx Radio, which are excellent. And praise goes to Deemster Braidwood, or Deputy Deemster Braidwood, and the lawyer that's representing this individual who couldn't get a home in the Isle of Man. Nobody would give him accommodation.
Yeah.
That's total embarrassment. And it's a total disrespect from David Ashford saying the other day on Manx Radio, if nobody's got a home, ring this number and you'll get some help. What's happened to social services? What's happened when the reporter said that Deemster requested information? And this is the thing that went on a couple of weeks ago, where it said the Deemster was told they could give him a tent and a field. Come on. We need to do more than this. Obviously, the person, I don't know the person personally, but I'm trying to defend the corner is, why wasn't social services in there straight away? Why wasn't the probation service in there straight away and giving reports? If you don't give a report to a Deemster of a court, where are we going?
And you're quite right to point this out. This is the case of Jordan Declan Cayley, who's... as you say, has been put in jail because there's nowhere else for him to go. And, put aside the fact that, it doesn't matter that he's pleaded guilty to 6 offences, but the recommendation was he should get a probation order. He should get a probation order and hopefully turn his life around.
So the community... And obviously, sorry, Andy, I was going to say, obviously the gentleman has some concerns there. So the packages are not available to the guy that was asking through his advocate. The major thing is through his advocate, and then through a Deemster of our courts, the highest courts we can get. Well, there's probably more than that, actually. And then where did he live? What did the politicians do that live in where he lived in the area? I don't know where he lived. But it doesn't make any difference. Why didn't somebody press that button and say, why isn't that person getting some support or help? Because he's in prison now, and he won't serve a great deal of time. But unless he gets a home to go to, he won't get out. It's like being in hospital. If your home is not assessed or there's nowhere to go, say he was in hospital, he'd be there for months on end, But at least he will get treatment for what's ever wrong and turn his life around. That's what we call early intervention of individuals. Whatever, I would say, whatever life they're leading or whatever, we need to do this all the time. Just throwing it out there, because when he comes out of prison, or before he comes out of prison, the parole board or the governor's going to have to say, where's he going to live? Is he going to have a tent on the Airs or next to Derby?
Yeah, I mean, the tent thing that was a bad joke, wasn't it? I mean, that really was.
It was, but where was it said? If you're saying it to a Deemster, you don't lie to the courts, do you? You know, if the Deemster's picking up stuff, and grateful for her to actually say these things in an open forum and in Manx Radio picking them up, which is a genuine concern for help. And the other day, I think Sarah said something about Manx Radio or whatever. I need to listen to it again, what she's trying to say. But this forum can actually do things and put that out there. At least somebody's listening, and they all are, because they're all worried what they're going to do in the future, aren't they? But our concern, or my concern, is I don't know the individual, but I'm wanting to help him. How can we do it? All right?
Okay, appreciate that, David. Thanks for calling.
Bye.
It's 13 minutes past 12. Well, this is the case of Jordan Declan Cayley, who was sentenced after weeks of uncertainty about what his punishment should be. Douglas Courthouse yesterday. He'd pleaded guilty to 6 offences. The recommendation was he should receive a probation order, but without an address. That was something the Deputy High Bailiff had said she couldn't impose, as it would be setting him up to fail. So apparently there were supposed to be efforts being made to find Mr. Cayley accommodation. Did it happen? No. In court last week, we heard that efforts were underway to have Mr. Cayley undergo a mental health assessment, but yesterday Mr. Cayley's advocate confirmed it hadn't been done. Now, we'd also talked previously about the frank assessment of the situation, which a senior probation officer had given to court. That officer returned to court yesterday. Once again, her frustration was evident. The probation officer told the court that her superior within the Prison and Probation Service had specifically requested that a mental health review take place, but their request went unanswered by Manx Care. She confirmed it had been followed up, no response. And she said, despite again asking social care to look at potential accommodation options, there had been no response. And Jordan Cayley has gone to jail because of this. Now, I mean, it's important. The rights of wrongdoers are a price that civilization pays. And part of the justice system is rehabilitation. It's making sure that people who have transgressed look to see how they can turn their life around in the future. And Mr. Cayley is now in prison, whereas he could have been outside prison. Any thoughts on this? David was right to reference Deputy High Bailiff Rachel Braidwood said it was clear Mr. Cayley, she said he was vulnerable, at risk of exploitation, had a very difficult background, and had suffered from a lack of guidance and care throughout his life. But that doesn't mean he couldn't turn his life around. That doesn't mean that he can't lead a better life. And he will need help. Whether he'll get that inside prison, as opposed to being outside prison, well, any thoughts on this? Text, email, call and WhatsApp. Wilf's with us now. Hi, Wilf.
Hiya. It's just something I thought of. Well, I thought of the other day, actually, but I didn't bother to come on. Because I didn't have much to say about anything else, but it's just something I thought of. Government is always squawking they've got no money or they're short of money. All the time. Every day. Now, as you know, because you drive a petrol car or diesel car, the tax on fuel is tremendous that the government get from petrol and diesel and whatever. And this is only my opinion, that's all. They should stop immediately promoting electric cars. Because if they got that ultimate what they want us to do, and end up all electric, then all petrol stations will go out of business. All those people be on dole or whatever, and all that revenue that they were getting from what I call normal vehicles, that ceases, and they end up with nothing. They don't get any. They don't get anything from electric car. Nothing at all. What do you call it? What do you call a? What's the one that you use petrol to do the charges?
A hybrid.
Hybrid. Well, I don't think that petrol stations could all live, if you like, on hybrid cars, selling what petrol they require.
So do you think the government's thought about, we're talking about fuel duty and VAT that people pay, because
that's the one.
The vast majority is fuel duty, and then there's obviously VAT on top.
Yes, and I would say that's one of the biggest things we've got is the duty on fuel, or the duty that the man in the street has to pay the government for his fuel. I mean, he's already doing it on. I mean, I don't smoke, I don't drink, but they got the taxes of the drink, they got the taxes of the tobacco, and they might lose if well, unless somebody gets some sense up there, they're going to lose all their revenue of selling petrol and diesel.
And do you think they've thought about that?
Well, obviously not. It takes the likes of me to think about that. Plus the fact, my old man had a saying for that. It's called saving up till you've gotten out. So there you go.
All right, Wilf. I appreciate that. Thanks for calling today.
Okay.
Good to hear from you. It's 18 minutes past 12. Well, that's one consequence. I must say, I've not thought about that before, but that's something, isn't it? If nobody is buying fossil fuels, I mean, if nobody's buying petrol or diesel, and bearing in mind we're basically taxpayers. The motorist is a source of revenue for the government, because every time you fill up, you're charged fuel duty and you're charged VAT, of course, none of which goes to the retailer. So Manx Petroleum's, EVF and people like that, they pass all that on to the government, and they make what they can on the small amount per litre that they make, and have to make the rest up by selling bread and papers and tins of carrots and what have you, and chocolate and pop. So you would just wonder what the future would look like. Bearing in mind now that very few people smoke compared to the number of people who used to smoke in the past. So tobacco duty has gone down and down and down in terms of receipts. Booze, well, lots of people still drink. So where would the government get the tax from? And I wonder whether or not the government here has figured out, and they must know how many litres of fuel are sold per year, so they'll know what the take is on the fuel duty. If those sort of vehicles go, where's it going to come from? Here's Juan now. Hi, Juan.
How's Andy today?
You've not been blown asunder, have you?
Well, I mean, talking about that, it's a mess. It's an absolute mess, Andy. When you're driving down the road and you're seeing people who've lost their homes and 23 inches underwater, a lot of houses, it was a mess.
How often does it happen, Juan?
It doesn't happen often, a lot of it's down to moon phases, high tide, low tide. There's a lot of variance to be taken into consideration, but this was extreme. The size of this that came through was extreme, and what I found very unusual, being in the middle of it, I found very unusual a hurricane of that size to come off the sea with no rainfall. I found very bizarre. The storm surge was the problem, and the wind, and I mean you can see the distance that it's travelled now, and the damage it's done up in North Carolina. I mean it's crazy. But
so whereabouts are you? Where are you? In upstate Florida, are you? Where are you?
At the moment, I'm in Kissimmee. I've come away from the coast,
okay.
So the coast took the big hit. But for it to travel right the way through, the size of this was like obscenely big.
Well, I got a message in from a lady who used to live in Laxey, who now lives there. Her home floated away. It just got blown completely away. There's nothing there.
Yeah, it was mental. I mean, to be honest, I mean, three of my neighbours lost their cars because the salt water had got in. And talking about, when we talk about EVs on this programme a lot, there was 23 inches of water got in one car, which was an EV, and of course it got into the terminals and the battery exploded, took the car and took the house. So the guy had no house. He's only been there 3 weeks and no car. And that's the beauty of EVs for you.
Anyway, that wasn't why you called.
You're right. I tell you what, you're so on the ball. That isn't. I see the budget for Manx Radio's gone up over budget, I believe. That's not the cost of the Mannin Line tea towels, is it?
Oh, no.
No. But housekeeping, Andy. Yesterday when I was on and listening to the two guys from Deborah Heather and Ranulph from the tourism, and I seen their presentation at the conference and the videos, very good. A lot of money spent on the videos, making the island look great. But I just wanted to touch on what Sarah Maltby said after I'd been on about the Mannin Line just being an opinion programme. I'm sure there's a hidden message in there somewhere, and we should contact the officials and make our cases known. But I kind of made it quite clear during that my point that I was getting over, and it was only two small points compared to what else was going on the island, but them poles have been sat there on that promenade. I mean, I watch the promenade. I can sit in the Palace Hotel window and watch that promenade in the morning. I can tell you how many people go on the horse trams, what's going on, people watch. Them poles have been sat there for 3 seasons. And officials from Douglas Council go past there numerous times a day. Why does it have to take me to write in to tell them what is obvious? And it's just a point of, if I walk along there in the evening and I see people from the coaches, from the hotels out promenading, then what do they think of something that's left lying like that, just rusting away? It's a kind of a sign that no one cares. And it's only small things. It's like when I brought up the entrance to the Manx Museum and they guide people up the lifts and through Chester Street car park. It's messy. The posters are peeled off the walls. It's messy. I brought it up before many times, and nothing really been done. They battened up the fire hose area to make that look tidy because it was a health hazard. But the washing of the lights, everything, soft washing, nothing's been done. So it's. What would you say? Making your shop window look good.
Well, let's face it, and talking about that, every time, I mean, up and down Strand Street, first thing in the morning, there are people who are employed to clean windows. That's what they're all about. So, as you say, somebody who's got a shop will employ a window cleaner to make sure their shop looks good, and they'll make sure that the shop is warm and welcoming and well lit. So every retailer knows this is what you have to do. Do you think that people in the public sector don't quite understand that the customer comes first? The customer is always right. Even when the customer's wrong, the customer's always right.
I think half the problem is we have got an amount of civil servants who come out of offices, who come out of universities. We've got politicians. I don't think there's one politician in there, beside maybe Claire Christian, who's actually had their own business, per se, and from the ground up. And I think this may be some of the problem as well. We were grown up, I mean, the island came alive with business people, forward-thinking people, investors and business people that made the island swing. And I think that's where we are now with that. And it's a shame because, like you say, it's the first code of practice. You dress your shop window, you clean it, you make sure it's clean, you make sure it's easy for people to see, and your stuff's displayed nicely.
But do you think that and again, let's come back to, you see, there are some places that absolutely shine. Look at Port Erin, look at Peel,
And that was my point yesterday. Douglas has no identity. Peel commissioners, they seem to be pretty go-ahead. I mean, I walk down Peel and Port Erin quite a lot in the summer. Beautiful, especially when the summer sun's out. It comes alive. They've got beach entertainment on and stuff. But Douglas has kind of lost that identity over the years. But it's just them little tiny things that, it's the gateway to the island. And that's where majority of people still stay in the big hotels down there. So, just to make that tidy. on the Friday, I was waiting to come on with Alf Cannon, but obviously didn't get on. I did have some points to put to Alf Cannon, which I would do. And listening to him, one point that he made during his little speech there was streamlining of officials and making things more streamlined. And at that time, I'm looking at this absolute mountain of new job creations, not filling old positions, but new job creations. And I'm thinking, these two don't quite go together, do they? You know, and we've got £50,000 for a what should we call them, a cow fart officer for the farms. I mean, it's a bit silly, isn't it? I mean, they're spending all our money on these job titles. And is it people like KPMG that are our new overlords that they're bowing down to on their advice of getting these things in for our ESGs, DEIs, carbon credits? And again, I go back to where is this government, where's this agenda, and where is it taken us? Because surely it's not for the benefit of the Manx people. And this links up with what David was saying before about looking after our own people. We've not got any housing for them. Our whole infrastructure is broken at the moment, but they want to bring in how many people into the island, which is not achievable.
Another 15,000, and the Chamber of Commerce says that's not reality.
Well, any man in the street with common sense, you don't need the Chamber of Commerce to tell them that. John Webster said this months ago. You know, we've got broken housing for locals. There's locals that can't get housing. We've just been on about that now. We've got local people who've lived here all their lives can't get a dentist. We've got administration problems. We've got infrastructure problems. I was talking to two former police officers before I went away, both ranking police officers in their time. And they were told then that the tactical arm unit is out every single day now on the island. And the response came from a serving police officer, we're ready for what's coming. Well, what is coming? And why are they ready for it now? What suddenly changed? Except the fact that the Isle of Man's had a big neon light put out over it somewhere in the world, bringing people in. Well, I don't kind of know what's changed, Andy. And a couple of questions I wanted to ask the Chief Minister, probably wouldn't have got an answer, but it's come back to me as well that Manx Care, people in Manx Care have been told not to speak in social media because it will lead to disciplinary and tribunals. And also in the steam packet. Now, I can stand to be corrected on them, but when people come and talk to me about this stuff, if that's so, what would you say that is? Soft communism?
Well, it's interesting, and that's true about Manx Care as well. I didn't know about the steam packet, but presumably, I mean, whether or not that's going to happen on the Isle of Man with its tradition of skeet, then who knows?
It concerns me, and it concerns a lot of people, of the direction that this government is going in. This carbon credits and sustainability will bankrupt us. If not that, it will not do the island residents any favours at all. There's people turning away from it. They need to look at the bigger picture. And it really concerns me where this administration is taking this island at the moment. Okay. I do have concerns, and a lot of other people do as well. I'm off, Andy. I'm going sunbathing.
Thank you, Juan. It's good to hear from you. 12:30 on Manx Radio. Why does a politician need to shadow Manx Care budgets? It says, this is the proposals that's been put forward so that they can put a politician from Tynwald to shadow Manx Care to look at their budget. G says, 313, what's the Auditor General doing? Thanks also to Owen, who just said, I think we need to get things straight here. Who runs the Isle of Man? Is it the civil service or is it the elected politicians? Because if the elected politicians can't make things happen unless the civil service happen to want it to happen, then what situation are we? That's called democracy, isn't it? Thank you, Owen. It's odd, says Dick, of the Chief Ministers, saying that the overspending of Manx Care is his and the Council of Ministers' greatest priority. Nothing more than a soundbite designed to hoodwink the public, says Dick, to think that combing cares, I suppose. If they supposedly care so much, why did the Health Service not feature on last week's conference with 2 days to explain for the Minister why health is in such a state and what his restructuring plan is? We haven't heard a whisper about Manx Care, no sign of the Health Minister or executives or even the board or non-exec directors. Doesn't sound like a top priority, and they couldn't find time for it at the conference. It's time for a complete change, says Dick. Well, he said it was going to happen, didn't he? Now, obviously, the conference, I wouldn't have thought it had been sorted out at the conference. I would imagine, I mean, I don't know because I don't move in those circles, but I would imagine there are lots of conversations behind closed doors going on and lots of people pointing at each other. I'm just saying that. And a note in to say a quick question about the new road studs that are being fitted around the Isle of Man. What's going to happen with the studs when it snows and along comes a snowplow, as the big trucks have already misplaced them by driving over them? Will the snowplow just rip them out? What a complete waste of money, says Mike on 023. Can somebody let the public know why there are no Isle of Man meats at Tesco today, says Andy. We can certainly ask the question, why no Isle of Man meats at Tesco today? If there's no accommodation, then there's no accommodation, says 475. People aren't kept in prison because they have no accommodation on release. Also, on the issue of tents, it's not the first time it's been suggested or indeed acted upon. Social services have in the past actually provided tents and sleeping bags to individuals requiring accommodation where none is available, says 475.
In beautiful Silverdale Glen, Ballasalla, find your perfect home away from home at Trail Lodge. If you're looking for a staycation this autumn, Trail Lodge is the perfect retreat with stays as short as one night available. So book now. Terms and conditions apply. Vouchers for Trail Lodge are also perfect for anniversaries, presents, corporate gifts and more. Ideal for surprise 2025 getaways. Trail Lodge, Silverdale Glen, Ballasalla. Visit traillodge.im or search Trail Lodge on Facebook.
Discover a fabulous range of watches, gifts and jewellery at Ramsey Art Gallery with top brand watches from Bulova, Citizen Eco Drive and Storm to Acura's Seconda and Timex. Plus, all watch purchases come with free lifetime watch bracelet adjustment service. There's stunning gold and silver jewellery, gifts for all occasions, and of course a fabulous gallery of limited edition prints and original artworks. Find all this and more at Ramsey Art Gallery, Jewellers and Engravers, opposite Ramsey RNLI shop.
Support Hospice Isle of Man during Hospice Care Week by Baking the Difference. From the 7th to the 13th of October, we'd love you to host a cake-based fundraiser as part of our Cakes for Care campaign. Whether a coffee morning, afternoon tea or office cake break, it can be as simple or elaborate as you like. And whether you raise £20 or £200, every penny counts. All money raised stays local with your hospice, so raise a cuppa and raise some funds. To get involved, visit hospice.org.im/Cakes for Care.
The Musicals in Concert returns to the Royal Hall Villa Marina, Sunday 13th of October, presented by Stage Ed, featuring classic songs from the world's greatest musicals in a gala performance by stars from the London stage. The Musicals in Concert, Sunday 13th October at the Villa Marina. Book now at villagaiety.com or on 600 555 with Zedra Isle of Man and supported by your nation station, Manx Radio.
Coming up, we have another winning weekend here on Manx Radio. And this time, we're giving you the chance to win a £100 fuel voucher from Manx Petroleum. You can visit their filling stations across the island and remember to check your oil tank early this autumn and winter. To win, all you need to do is listen out for our winning question, which we'll ask on air right across the weekend. And once you've heard it, text your answer to 166 177. Make this your winning weekend with Manx Petroleum and your nation station, Manx Radio.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
It's Wednesday, so that means after Mannin Line today, 60th anniversary, looks back to vintage Kelly's Eye. Peter Kelly and David Callister looking at a building on a corner in Victoria Street with a varied past and some famous fashion links. That's Kelly's Eye after Mannin Line today. We'll go to Chris. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Andy. Good afternoon to you. Andy, we're 3 years away from the last election, and we've got 2 years before the next one. And we seem to be surrounded by a whole range of big issues. I mean, we're talking about big issues here. We've got ever bigger government, and it just keeps growing. We've got shrinking reserves, and they just keep shrinking. We've got a health budget out of control. We've got, and I'm one of them, a growing elderly population. We've got the government budget year after year after year in deficit. We've got a government producing ever more regulations, and we have no serious major economic initiatives coming down the road that are going to significantly help us. So, people like me are going to say, well, how are we going to address these issues? As regards the big issues, you hear very little or nothing from our current group of MHKs about the big issues. We've got little prospect in 2 years' time of individual manifestos addressing the big issues that I've just tried to list there. And we've also got a civil service which has absolutely no intention of grasping the big issues. When they're asked to save money, they tend to look to the frontline services to cut costs rather than the back office large administration process. And you end up asking yourself the question, how the hell are we going to deal with these issues, and how are people going to get engaged in them in a constructive way? And all we have at the moment is KPMG and this population issue. Now, I'm not on to discuss the population growth issue. I'm on about how on earth we as a community, as a nation, deal with these big issues, and how are we going to manage to achieve success. And I think it means to do so, we're going to have to face up to some really big questions. And what I would ask government to do is not to come out with what they think are the fast fix solutions, because I don't think there are any. What I'd like government to do is to really to list these issues and then seek support and guidance as to what the options for us are to actually seriously respond to these. Because if we don't respond to them, we're just going to carry on seriously drifting into ever greater problems. And once you have a situation, and it's, as I say, we're 2 years out from an election, if we had a series of options before us, then it would allow us as a community to start addressing these and discussing these things to decide where the hell we want to go. Because right now, we're in a position where we're heading towards losing our position as a cost-effective tax jurisdiction. And if we lose that, where the hell are we? So I just throw that question out to people to see if others want to respond to it, because I think there's an awful lot to worry about.
But Chris, I mean, you're obviously we're talking to Chris Robertshaw, former MHK, former senior hotelier, if I can call you that, on the Isle of Man. Chris, I think the public also would like to know, Chris, when did the wheels come off? Because it feels like the wheels have come off. Was it COVID? Was it happening before? Was it the banking crisis? How have we got here?
Oh, well, it started before the banking crisis, but I mean, I got into politics in 2011, and it was very soon after that I thought, goodness me, our system of government isn't working properly. And that's why I started to adopt this issue of we need to reform, and my proposals were rejected. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Chris, a lot of people,
they're still relevant.
That's my point. When you were policy and reform, I mean, who stopped it? You obviously had proposals. You thought those out. You thought they were relevant, coherent, and would work. I mean, how did they get blocked?
Well, the council, I put them to the council of ministers, and the council of ministers said, no, we don't want to do that. And the reason they said that was that individual ministers were very comfortable having once been elected. It sort of, as individuals, it increases your sense of, your personal ego. And then when you get appointed as a minister, you tend to start to get a little bit too egotistical, and you start to become ego-native. You become protective of your department and your role. And the reforms that I put forward were just too difficult for them to face up to, and they just didn't do it. But there are ways of making our government much more efficient and smaller. We're going to have to do that. We're going to have to. The public have got to find faith again in government, and right now it's not there. And it will not be there until government shows itself capable of becoming a much more efficient, productive organisation. Right now, the establishment is running itself, and it's sadly it's out of control, and things have seriously got to change.
I mean, this will mean politicians telling the public, as you're suggesting, things that will, by their very nature, not be popular. So, I mean, how do they do that?
Well, politicians won't do that because it loses them votes. But government has got to find sufficient courage in itself to accept the degree of difficulty we're in and bring forward a set of options as to which way we should be going and why. And then we've got 2 years to do it. And we should then be discussing those. What we don't want is another election where, quite understandably, individuals stand on issues that often relate to their particular constituency and specific details. As a consequence of that, the public have never got the electorate have never got the opportunity to indicate to government where they really want things to go. And so we're sort of stuck in this highly frustrated position where people are increasingly concerned about the future, unable to, as it were, effect change. The civil service itself have got their heads in the sand and are preoccupied with their own particular interests. And politicians are not getting sufficient advice and guidance to help them construct the options that we need to face up to. I mean, some of them will be difficult, obviously, but what are we going to do otherwise? Are we just going to carry on drifting like this, losing our reserves, getting an ever more expensive government, failing to deal with our health budget, and finding no new really significant and important economic initiatives? I mean, it's a real worry, and I'm just saying this today in case others want to respond to this or have got better ideas than me as to how we can start to have this become a conscious discussion in public.
Is there any possibility, Chris, that you're going to be standing as an MHK in 2026?
No, I'm too old, Andy. No, I've had my go. I said my piece. I tried my best and I failed, but the problems are still there and they're not going to go away. And, our MHKs have got to grow up and face it. Okay. All right. Appreciate it, Chris. Thanks for calling. Thanks, Andy. Bye-bye. Thanks. Now, 16 minutes before 1. Text, email, call and WhatsApp. Just a quick word. And this is from 496, who just said, works around the Willaston area out of control. Rows of houses around Congestion and Keppel Road are being refurbished. New flats are being built across the shops. Roadworks are now outside the shops with temporary traffic lights. So much is happening in the area at once around Willaston. Tradesmen park their own vehicles around the area, then use trade vans. It's almost impossible to safely cross the road, and the amount of vehicles parked on pavements and blind corners. I worry for the school children on their journeys to and from school. This is going to continue for months as it's a huge project, and I don't understand why it's all happening at the same time. This case of cat litter, by the way, bins have been placed on more than 50 beaches around the Isle of Man by beach buddies. Now, they're used for waste on the beach, but they're being abused in some areas by a small number of people, according to Beach Buddies. It comes after 13 large bags of used cat litter, full of cat litter, were left at one of the Beach Buddies bins at Smeale in Andreas. They left them, the 11 bags of litter, in the hope that the person responsible will get the message and go and take them away themselves. This is not what they're for. The bags of cat litter waste were first spotted at the beginning of September
and they deliberately took them out of there. They've been put in the Beach Buddies bins because this person can't be bothered. They took them out of their bins and put them alongside the bin to send a message that it's not the job of Beach Buddies to dispose of items such as used cat litter or any other domestic household items. It's written all over the bins what they're for. So why would anybody do that? Why would anybody take advantage of Beach Buddies and what they're doing to clean up the beaches to do that? There's been a pattern apparently in recent months of large amounts of rubbish, which is clearly domestic from people's homes, being put into Beach Buddies bins. Now, why would anybody do that? I mean, you could understand if people were ignorant of what Beach Buddies do, but it wouldn't take long for somebody to say you shouldn't be doing that. So please don't do it. Leave Beach Buddies bins for what they are and clear up after your own rubbish. And if they are your 13 bags of cat litter, they'd really appreciate you doing the right thing. It's Diane now. Hello, Diane.
Oh, hello, Andy. How are you, darling?
Very well, thanks.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a bit about what Wilf was mentioning about the cars.
Yeah.
What is going to happen, because no government now is running anywhere, they're all following an agenda from the World Economic Forum, etc. I'm saying you, I don't mean you personally, but people are going to have to pay to use their car by the mile. This is what's happening by 2030. I know it's happening in the UK and all old cars and these without kill switches in them, which will be got rid of. So and anybody with cars are going to pay by the mile, which means even if it was a fee of £1 a mile.
Yeah.
Right now, I have to go to Tesco's in Douglas. That would mean it would cost me £16 just to drive there and back. This is where it is going. And another thing I'd just like to say, people with these LED lights in the cars, which are absolutely blinding, they've got them on full beam in the full daylight, and they will be used for track and trace. This is why the little man, when he wanted his fairy lights along the promenade, but they haven't. They put LED lights up.
Right.
And this will be used for track and trace, and who's in your car and what you're doing and where you're going, and so if they don't agree, because everybody building these so-called villages, if you leave them for more than an X amount of time a year, that's normally about 100 times, and as I said, there will be kill switches in cars, and it'll just kill your car, or you'll be ordered back.
Oh, good grief.
Well, this is it. It's stopping people from moving around. This is the whole point. This is why they're wilding everywhere.
Okay. All right. Hey, listen, got to go, Diane. Thanks for calling today.
Yeah, Mark, bye.
Good to hear from you. Manx Care could save money by buying cheaper models of ambulances, maybe Ford Transit bases, not Mercedes. Just a thought, says Will. Fuel duty, apparently, is 74p plus VAT per litre. 74p. So how's the Isle of Man government going to raise that lost revenue and the many millions of pounds that's going to be? Well, you would have thought they'd sussed that out already. If we are going to go to electric vehicles, consequently won't be paying any fuel duty or VAT on that, what will we do? How are they going to get the money back? Sure as anything, they're going to want to get the money back somehow. Taking Will's point further, says G, if everybody gives up cars, so government suggests, what about the insurance business? That's going to take a hit as well. Presumably if we're in electric vehicles, then we'll have to have insurance for that. But again, as its DOI stated intention to move us away from private vehicle use and to get onto public transport, if they could get enough bus drivers. Have you noticed, by the way, that every industry seems to be short? We're short of bus drivers. We're short of butchers now. Did you see that notice about apprenticeships on the Isle of Man? There's a worldwide shortage of butchers. There's a worldwide shortage of dentists and a worldwide shortage of air traffic controllers. I saw an article that said cars will be fitted with smart meters to record mileage and drivers will be charged for this as a replacement of fuel duty, says Pat. That's what Diane said. It's true. And the technology is there. I mean, the GPS technology that will do your sat-nav in the car can easily be transposed. And military, I think, GPS is down to less than a metre. It can spot where you are. So it's very probable, and the technology is there, not to charge road tax, but to charge people by the mile, and that'll be basically registered in a GPS in your vehicle, and you'll get a bill every month to say you've travelled X amount of miles, and that's how much you have to pay. At the moment, we pay road tax, so we'll see. Thanks also for I went to, so Gary said, you said that people still drink, must be at home. I went to Ramsey Saturday night, and all I can say is the brewery and the government have killed it. I'm not a drinker, but £6 for 2 half pints. The only thing missing was the specials popping up for a sing-song, says Gary. A quick note also, I just want to mention this about the Isle of Man Office of Cyber Security and Information Assurance is warning there have been fake free online courses, adverts appearing on social media. Cyber criminals are impersonating DESC, the Department of Education, Sport and Culture, using Manx government logos to appear more credible. Police advise you to be very wary of new and unfamiliar offers that seem enticing and to avoid making any payments unless you're certain that an advert is genuine. And scams can also be reported to Facebook, but watch how that goes. I'd like to know where the Isle of Man government's going to find the several millions for the 5.5% pay rise for teachers and UCM lecturers. Another department overspending, is that, says David. Is this why Manxcare won't house vulnerable people now? The chair of the government's Housing Communities Board said it spends almost £6,000 last year clearing up after people in emergency accommodation. Mr. Ashford said the money had been paid to hostels, B&Bs and hotels for clearing belongings left behind, replacing damaged furniture or bedding or deep cleaning rooms. He says there'll always be need for another budget, says Texter 223. Well, if we can find out who that person is who's dumping that cat litter in Andreas, then that will be useful. If it's you, by the way, they'd like you to go and take the bins away, if you could do that. Lots more messages we didn't get to. Back with another open line tomorrow. In the meantime, you can call the answer phone on 682-631 or email manninline@manxradio.com. Thanks to Chris Quirk on the phones today. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.
WINT. 60 years serving you as the nation station. This is Manx Radio.
Kelly's Eye, brought to you by Ellis Brown Architects.
Peter, what's Kelly's Eye looking at today?
Today, David, I'm looking at a little bit of Egyptian decoration.
Well, that's fair enough.
Well, that's it, yes. It's perhaps not recognisable as Egyptian to most people.
It certainly isn't to me, till you mention it.
Okay, well, what happened in the 30s when you got these Art Deco buildings, a lot of the decoration, which were sort of straight lines and things, were based on some of the Egyptian decorations. Not that you got on the pyramids, but you only got on the temples and things of that nature. There's this decoration with these sort of pillars coming down, sort of thing you'd see on Cecil B. DeMille films, great epics of these temples.
Exactly.
The plans were deposited with Douglas Corporation in December of 1928, and the foundation stones were laid in 1929. We're in Douglas, we're on the main street. This is Victoria Street, that is Duke Street, so by now everyone should have guessed this is the Burton's building, built for Burton's Tailoring.
If you're of a certain age, it's the Burton's building, but I think
true, yes.
Since that time, it's changed a bit.
Well, yes, it became Gellings, and then it became Office World. Now it's a bookshop. Up above, at one time, was the Rural Library. There was also a dance studio where, in fact, they had jive clubs and different things as well.
But there are famous names then on the wall, are there not?
There are. If we go around into Duke Street, we'll see that the stone was laid by Barbara Jessie Burton. And then on this side, this was laid by Montague Raymond.
But
Burton.
Montague Burton.
The Montague Burton, of course, who set up the chain. And this is actually, not many people will know this, but this was designed and based on Burton's shop in the Strand in London.
Oh.
This was quite something. This was really the most modern store at that time. I mean, Woolworths didn't have a large store at all, and Marks and Spencer's were in the Penny Bazaar.
The other aspect, of course, is that it may not be here much longer. Is that what I'm hearing and reading?
Well, it's been registered, and the owners are requesting it be deregistered. So we've got to watch this, because otherwise it'll be gone for a bird.
Many of the most iconic buildings around the island have been designed by Ellis Brown Architects. Keep up with Ellis Brown today on Facebook or via ellisbrown.in.
Part of island life for 60 years. This is your Manx Radio.